All right, hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. All right, today I'm going to take a little bit further look on at making even front stuff a little bit more dynamic, and I'll talk to you about why and what my thoughts are right now. Make sure you check out some of our partners here. Dome Hats, the headwear partner with Play Fast Football and the company that I use at the current school that I'm at right now. You can make custom hats with their online hat builder. Every hat has a story. Customize your hat so you can tell people your story and let Dome Hats help tell your story. GameStrat sideline replay system we use, reliable, affordable. I use it. We don't have any problems with it. The only problems we ever have are operator error. It's an absolutely awesome system that I recommend to everybody. Baker Sporting Goods, who makes our Spirit Pack stuff, our coaches gear. We get our uniforms from them. Everything we need for our football program, kind of on and off the field, apparel-wise, is through Baker Sporting Goods. So make sure you check them out. JustPlayFB, which is the software I use to diagram plays for webinars, clinics, playbook stuff. It's a more powerful way to present your playbook and some of your game plans to your players. So make sure you check out Just Play. DifferenceUSA, the ultimate striking machine. We have one that we set up in the off season in our weight room. Actually, just looking at it personally, I need to do more work on a DifferenceUSA machine. When I watch our film, we didn't strike well enough. We're not good enough at disengaging from blocks and moving people at the line of scrimmage, so we need to work on our strike a little bit more, on our hand placement, elbow thumbs, all those things. So make sure you check out DifferenceUSA. And then HighandTight ball security training aid that gives you an auditory response when you have the ball where it needs to be. You'll hear a beep. The panels recognize, the different panels on the ball recognize the different points of pressure that you need to have and where the ball needs to be high and tight, so you know that you've got it in the right spot. Ball security is job security. Make sure you check that out. So this time of year when I'm doing videos in the off season, I always like to kind of take you guys on the ride that I'm going on, talking about self-scout, evaluation, where we need to be, where we're trying to go, things that I'm looking at as a football coach. And the last week or so, I did a couple videos on broken stack, odd front stuff, the mint or tight front, mint front stuff. And one of the reasons that I was talking about that and I was looking at stuff like that is, we need to do things a little bit differently at the high school that I'm currently at, simply because we've kind of plateaued into a team that's hovering around the 500 mark. Had a chance to win a district championship last year, didn't accomplish that. Got into a playoff system this year that was kind of Corona, COVID based, based on how they place teams and whatnot. We won one of those games and then we lost the next one against a team that beat us twice this year. They have beaten us a couple times in the past 5 or 6 years, so we've got to get over that hump because they're in our district. So, finding ways to take the program to the next level. And, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how can we be a little bit different, and how can we put the kids that we have in better position to win games. So we're always looking at odd front stuff because I think odd front is so different than everybody else. Everybody talks about all the time, when you draw plays up, you always draw up the 3 and the shade or the 2-eye and the 4-2-5 or the 4-3 structure. Everybody draws that up because they feel comfortable going against it. So I always felt like odd stuff was a way to be different. It was a way to accomplish some of the things that we need to accomplish on defense. So what I'm going to take a look at today is, can we do those things from our even front structure, which personally I feel like is a little bit easier to teach to our kids. And I know, everybody's going to have their selling point on what they believe in on offense or defense, and how you teach things and how you get your kids to understand the things that you're teaching, is on you as a coach. And I understand that. I fully believe in that. And I know that we always need to do a better job coaching our players, techniques, fundamentals, assignments, alignments. But at the same time, I think you need to take it to another level. There's an interesting thing out there right now. You got, Kirk Street and people talking about the playoff system and changing the playoff system because it's the same, 4 to 6 schools every year. And there's schools that go into the season knowing no matter what they do, they'll probably never get a shot. And high school football can be very similar. There's so many schools that on paper probably don't have a shot at the beginning of the season. Well, how are you going to change that? What are you going to do if you're at a place, all right, that maybe everybody doesn't look at as a blue blood or a factory or a competitor or, a contender? What are you going to do to get over the hump? How are you going to change that? When you look at recruiting classes right now, because yesterday was National Signing Day, early National Signing Day, or you look at teams in the NFL, like I look at the Redskins, for instance, okay? Redskins decided to, Chase Young, Montez Sweat. They went out and find some really, really good defensive linemen. All right. The top NFL teams usually are very good up front. The top college programs are usually pretty good. O-line, D-line. You see them dominating in the trenches with the recruits that they get and how those kids play. So the game in the trenches is so important. And in high school, when you don't really have a chance to build your roster outside of the kids that show up, you have to take the kids that show up and you have to make them better, and you have to make them, all right, or put them in a position to compete. Okay, so when I look at what we may be trying to do to get a little bit more dynamic and even front, here's what I look at. All right, we need to be able to challenge the O-line. Like I just mentioned, most of the best teams around are usually pretty good O-line, D-line. All right, they're usually dominant in the trenches, whether it be physically, technique, fundamentals, execution. They're dominant in the trenches. Well, personally, I feel like in high school, the O-line is usually one of the weaker units on most teams. All right, simply because there's not a lot of schools out there that have the capacity to put 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 280, 90, 300-pound athletes across the board year in and year out. All right, they have a hard time, and you have a hard time in high school finding those types of kids. So, to me, the position of O-line is so hard to begin with. There's so much going on with it that is so critical to the success of the offense. To me, that's where you need to challenge people if you want to compete for district titles, or you want to get past that 6-4, 5-5 hump. You've got to challenge the offensive line. All right. So if we can't do that from an odd structure, we need to find ways to do it from an even structure. All right. We need to create negatives, for us at least. All right. I think getting people off track, creating negatives, forcing teams to throw the football more than they want to in high school. I've said this in the last 2 weeks of videos that I've been doing. Looking at our stuff this past year, the other teams ran the ball 85% of the game. All right, probably a lot of that because they were having success, score if they got ahead. But the bottom line is 85% of the time we're seeing run plays. We need to stop the run and make people throw the football. How do you do that? Create negatives. All right. If you can't just physically whip somebody at the point of attack, or destroy a double team at the point of attack to create run-throughs, you've got to find a way to create run-throughs. All right, if you can't beat a solo block one-on-one, disengage from it, get rid of it, and make a play beyond the line of scrimmage, you have to find ways to create negatives. All right, and one of the ways that you're always going to be able to create some negatives is with movement. Adding, a fifth or a sixth. Being a little bit more aggressive in nature, which is one of the things that we need to create if we want to still play the even front. All right? Be different. Talk about it all the time. The even front has a tendency to be static. Coaches like it because, you kind of eliminate some of the variables, quote unquote, so to speak, from some things. You make your run fits maybe a little bit easier. You keep the pictures similar so that kids can get repetitions and do things with their run fits or coverages over and over again. But the problem is in the same regards, the positive of it is the problem. It's stacked. People know where the front is. People know how they want to block it. They know, formationally how they want to attack it. So for us, we've got to find a way, if we want to stay with this structure, how can we be different? All right? Nowadays, I think it's all about confusing the play call. It's not as much about confusing the quarterback play calling wise anymore, because I don't think there's a ton of teams that are check with me with the quarterback. I think all the check with me and all that stuff is on the offensive coordinator. So how can we confuse the play caller if he's a if he's a check with me guy, or if he's a guy that is a tempo guy? All right, how can we confuse him? How can we get him to do the things we want him to do, not the things he wants to do? Okay. How can we dictate to the offense? How can we give the offense things that we want, all right, to happen? How can we make the ball go where we want it to go? In a base defense, how you take things on. People talk about spilling all the time. Spilling. Spilling is getting the ball to do what you want it to do so that your support structure behind it and your run fits behind it, all right, can fit appropriately. Getting the ball to go east and west so there's no vertical seams, right? If we have problems doing that, physically or technique, whatever it may be, how can we do things to still dictate that the ball's going to go where we want it to go? And then how do we get our guys where we need to get them once we get the ball where we want it? Okay? Defense is always kind of thought at as, if you don't want to look at it as read and react, at least look at it as reactionary, because the offense calls the play. The offense calls a formation, the offense calls a play. Before the ball snap, the offensive kids know what they're supposed to be doing. Every play call. Whether it's a check with me and you've got a run and a pass call. If it was Peyton Manning coming up to the line with a run and a pass and he makes the decision. When he makes the decision, when the ball snaps, they know where they're going. They know what they're doing. The defense always has to react to that. Whether you're aggressive in nature or quote-unquote read and react, doesn't make a difference. You still have to react to what the offense does, all right, all the time. The defense doesn't kind of control those things. But what the defense does control is dictating where you want the ball to go. So think about option principles. If the other team's an option team, even though the quarterback may be deciding on his reads where the ball goes, as a defense, you're kind of deciding where the ball goes more than he is, because if you want the dive to have the ball, you're gonna structure your option responsibilities to make sure the ball is given if that's who you want to have the ball. If you want the ball out of the quarterback's hands, you're going to structure your responsibilities to make sure that the ball gets out of the quarterback's hands. If they're a zone read team, you talk about all the time in the zone read. Well, in the zone read, who do you want to have the ball? Do you want that back with the ball, or do you want the QB with the ball? Whoever you want to have the ball on defense, you can structure things in a way that you can take the ball out of somebody's hands in a lot of those instances. So how can we dictate to the offense where we want the ball to go, who we want to have the ball, get them to do the things that we kind of want them to do. Don't let them do the things that they want to do. All right? And then, make it fun so that the kids will buy in. I think the funner something is, kids like to have fun. All right? You have to find a way to make it fun. I know one of the things, we look at all the time is, one of the arguments I've had with several coaches, and we've talked about this before, if you are a spill team, that defensive end eventually starts to figure out that he's making plays based on his assignment to help the defense, but he's not the one making plays. And after a while, those ends start to get a little bit tired of that. It's hard to find those kids that want to do that over and over and over again. Explaining to D linemen how to take on double teams so that the linebackers can run through to make plays when you're not the one making plays can be tough. So when you start to move a little bit and get, a little bit, I don't want to say risky, aggressive, but you build in some things that kids like doing. All right, the kids, when you start to blitz with different pressures, the kids like the different tracks, the different pressures. The ability to do things that they don't do every down. It starts to get mundane for them. They have smaller attention spans. You've got to make it interesting for the kids. You've got to find a way in your system to get the kids to buy in. That doesn't mean that you change everything you do so the kids, run the asylum. No, the inmates don't run the asylum. The players don't run, but they're the ones playing. You've got to find a way to keep their interest, pique their interest, and make it fun. Okay, so can we create a system, all right, in the even front that can do all those things much like the odd does? Can we manipulate the front to do some things different, all right, whether it be, all right, the movement based on, the other day we did one movement based on formation. Can we get it to a point where on one side or the other there's movement on almost every down so it's not a static picture, okay? Whether we stem into different things pre-snap, whether we move to different things, whether we show different fronts, okay? Like we've talked about sometimes, would it be the end of the world, all right, for what we see if you played with a 4-eye and a 2-eye, all right, to a side instead of a 3 and a 5. So instead of a 3 and a 5, if you took away that interior A gap, played with a 2-eye and a 4-eye, and got the ball to go where you want to, so now you're spilling the ball by alignment, you're getting it to go where you want to, you're trying to keep guys from the front side and gap schemes from getting to the linebackers. Could you do that? All right? Could you create the system to where you're constantly building in, all right, certain stunts to where on the front side, maybe you're taking away the front side A and B gap with a stunt. On the back side, maybe you're taking it away by letting one of your ends, all right, your backside end, maybe you let him be a 2-gap player. So now you're going to get the best of both worlds. You're going to allow him to keep the edge on pass rush. So if this was a pass, he could do that so that this kid could loop here. Okay? So now he can rush the passer because his technique is a read technique based on the block of the tackle. If you get the blocks you want for the tackle and they work out, he can beat those blocks back inside and eliminate the B gap. And now, with the movement on the front side and his technique on the back side, you've essentially eliminated B gap to B gap, or at least attempted to. without doing it by lining up in that front. All right, if you move, if you move the two interior guys. So if you move the two interior guys, all right, based on what you're seeing, if you move the two interior guys inside, if you brought the interior guys on a completely different stunt where they looped, all right, can you do enough things to be exotic enough in the even front defense to where you feel comfortable teaching the structure because it fits you and you feel like you can coach it a little bit better because it's what you know? Can you tweak it to make it a little bit more dynamic? Can you tweak it to make it different? All right, so if everybody that's playing it is 3-5 shade or 2-I-5 on the backside, okay? If everybody's playing it that way, then when you play it that way, you're going to have to be really good at how you're playing it because you're no different than anybody else. All right, that offense knows how to attack that structure, where they want to attack. So can you do it whether it be by front, okay, whether it be by front, whether it be by movement, all right? Maybe you play 4 players in head-up techniques, which has been done before, and maybe you move 3 of them in one direction and you keep the backside guy on an edge, all right? Any different way you can build to make things a little bit more dynamic, a little bit less static, all right? One of the things we did this year to try and take away some runs that we were struggling with, all right, is we tried to get a little bit thicker on our weak side techniques, and we tried to get 2 big sticks or long sticks with a will coming off the edge that read the block of the tackle. Any out blocks by the tackle, the will's going under in the B gap. Any down blocks, the will is going to squeeze and spill. And then we brought another one down. We spun our free safety to the field, and our backside safety spun to the middle, and we did this. We brought this pressure from the field, okay? And we tried to take away all interior gaps with the movement. So we tried to get every interior gap taken away with either our body or the lineman's body, and then we tried to add extra guys coming from the field side to generate some negatives, to take away some runs that we were struggling with or that we were having issues with. All right, these are the things I think you need to do to make the even front a little bit more dynamic. All right, I know a good friend of mine that's had a lot of success. All right, spoke at our clinic last year. Was in the state semifinal this year. He said one of the things they went back to just an old philosophy, almost like a 3-4 philosophy. One of the things that they had some success with. All right, staying within the even structure, they had success bringing a field side 4th. All right, sticking, looping, dropping the boundary end, and then playing just a standard old school version of 3D. All right, making the even front different by doing some things, all right, to make it a little bit more dynamic, more moving parts, all right, while staying to a structure that you feel comfortable in. The bottom line is if you know how to coach in an even structure and you know that personnel group and those fronts and coverages, whatever it is, and you don't know how to do it in odd, the more you go to odd, the more you're going to have to figure out how to do it so that you can fix all the issues. If you know how to do it in even, now the question is, if you're looking to be a little bit different, maybe you're not, this offseason you might be a team who just needs to get better at techniques and fundamentals because you're right there, or you're this close to winning, state championships, or you're this close to winning region titles, and you just need to do things a little bit better to get over that hump. Okay, well if that's you, then keep doing what you're doing. But if you're that middle tier program that's trying to break through from 5-5 to 6-4, you're trying to be a 7-win team every year. You're trying to compete for district titles and advance in the state playoff system. All right. You have got to look at yourself and figure out, what can I do a little bit different? You can never be afraid to do things different, all right, if you want to be in that picture or in that talk or in that. Same thing we talk about all the time with Coastal Carolina trying to do things different, Iowa State trying to do things different, academies trying to do things different. You have to take the situation you're in and figure out sometimes how to roll the dice to be an effective coach. And sometimes that means tweaking a system and doing some things maybe that who knows if anybody else is doing them. Who knows until you try it. Maybe somebody else is doing it. When I proposed playing 3 high safeties with a 4 down front, I got a message from again, the same My same buddy, all right, in North Florida who talked to me about what they were doing there, he came back and said, hey, Coach, we actually had to do that a little bit, and it worked, and here's how we did it. He confirmed, all right, at a very good school, a very good coaching staff, he confirmed to me that it could be done, which sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes all you need is a confirmation to say, hey, Coach, we've done that, it can be done. Otherwise, you know, sometimes you bounce around those ideas and you end up going back to the same status quo. All right. Last example I'll give you before I end the video is a guy like Kevin Kelly at Pulaski Academy, always on Twitter talking about analytics and making decisions and why guys do the things they do and basing a lot of his decisions off of data and understand. Guys won a ton of championships, has a bunch of success. Great success with his offense, you know, leading offense in the nation this year. And one of the ways he does it is by being different and understanding how to study data and analyzing information and then making decisions based on that information and not being afraid to make decisions that are different from the norm when he feels like, you know, they're analytical decisions that are correct based on the data involved. So for me, if I feel like we need to do a better job stopping a run, and the way we've been doing it isn't working, I need to go out and study some things and look at some data in our defense against the run and figure out if there's a way based on the data, can I do something different that not everybody else does or a lot of people don't do. Even though it's different, can I do it to cause problems for the offense to help give my kids an edge, maybe where we don't have an edge physically. If we don't get off the bus with an edge physically, how do we make that better? That's going to be the bottom line. As a coach, you're probably always going to be remembered by the games that you shouldn't win. Okay, so when you look at a lot of seasons, like when I look at our season, we won some games that we probably should have won on paper, and we didn't do a good job beating the people that we needed to beat, that maybe we shouldn't have beat. Those are the games you got to find a way to win as a coach. Like, you know, I heard a college coach one time talk about it, and he said, look, at this job, I wake up winning 9 games a year. What I do in game 10, 11, and 12 is what makes us and me different. Those other 9 games I win on signing day. And a lot of college programs are like that. Well, a lot of high school programs are like that too. There's a lot of high schools that are winning a lot of games based on the first day of school. Okay, based on who is there. All right, wrong, or indifferent, how they get there, regardless of what goes on. This has nothing to do with it. What it has to do with, day one, school starts. There's a lot of schools that are going to win 7 or 8 games just based on who's in the building. Okay, what they do 9, 10, and 11, what they do to make a state title run. Okay, like we have some schools around here in my area that are always playing for state titles. And you can complain, you know, you can talk about hows and whys, but here's the one thing I say. If they get to that game and find a way to win it, that's what makes you, all right, a football coach. That's what they pay you to do. You're probably going to get there a bunch based on the enrollment at your school. You're probably going to get there a bunch. Alabama's going to get where they are. Clemson's going to get where they are. Ohio State's gotten back. Notre Dame's gotten back. They're going to get where they are based on who's enrolled at their school. All right? But what they do to get beyond that. Do they make the playoffs? Do they win a playoff game? Do they compete for national titles? Do they win a national title? That's the next step. So for me, where I'm at, the next step is, can I get to 7, 8 wins? Can I win a district title? Can we make a run in the state playoff system? Can we do that with our players? We have a team meeting today about our off-season stuff, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about. Okay, so don't be afraid to take some chances. Don't be afraid to look at things that might be different. Don't be afraid to tweak your offense and defense a little bit. If you think it's sound, if you talk to people and they say, hey, I think it's possible, don't ever be afraid to do that. Thanks for tuning into the channel. We had great numbers this year, even though 2020 was a crazy year. We had great YouTube numbers, and I appreciate everything you guys do. If you're not a subscriber, click the subscribe button. Put thumbs up, thumbs down, all right, for whether you like it or not. It lets me know the content that we need to be doing. Always comment, all right. I try to get back to every comment that's in there. Turn your notifications on so you know that when we do these videos and when I go live. And remember, you won't play well till you play fast. See you next time.